Morning, everybody. Happy Sabbath. How many of you were here last night? Okay, quite a few hands, but not half. So let me just tell you briefly again who I am. I'm the director of the Creation Study Center, the North Pacific Union Conference. I've been there for about 2.5 years. Before I was a pastor for over 30 years, I studied to be a geologist at UC Riverside. And it was, and I still carry, before God pulled me into theology and following Him as a pastor, I still carry a great interest in the whole subject of origins. And for about 20 years on the side, I've been doing things on creation, side programs, and there's a series on 3 at the end. How many of you ever heard Life Talk Radio, Sink the Beagle? Sink the Beagle. So anyway, that you got the idea. Sink the HMS Beagle. That's a funny thing. Anyway, so we have fun with that too, and that's still on Live Talk Radio. I've been doing these things, but now I get to do this full time, and I'm having a lot of fun, and thank you for the invite. Tonight, I'm going to talk about dinosaurs, and we'll do a question and answer after that, and so have your questions ready on all things origins, age of the earth, whatever. I'll take a shot at it, and it'll be worth, my response will be worth what you paid for it, if you can come tonight. But why do all these things matter? We talked about the flood last night. We talked about dinosaurs this evening. Why does it all matter? And this is a journey that I've had as God has revealed more and more to me why this matters, what we believe. A call to worship the God of Genesis, and this will be in a text that you have heard many sermons about. Revelation 14, the first angel's message. You've heard, you're probably thinking, not another sermon on that. I've heard it all. No, I think you're going to get a little different view of it today. Here we go. Then I saw another angel flying in the midst of heaven, having the what? Everlasting gospel that is preached to those who dwell on earth, saying with a what kind of voice? Loud voice. Fear God, and give glory to Him, for the hour of His judgment has come, and worship Him who made heaven and earth, the sea, and the springs of waters. There are not too many churches in town where you will hear more sermons week by week on the subject of prophecy, because we believe God's given us light on prophecy. You're going to hear lots of sermons on Revelation. And we believe this is the first message that goes to the world just before Jesus comes. I want you to get this now. The whole book of Revelation is about who? It's about Jesus. It is a revelation of Jesus Christ. He is the star of the book. And what I want you to remember as we think about worship Him who made, we're worshiping the one who died on the cross, who also is our Creator. He is the star of the book. It's all about Jesus. Is that right? Amen? Amen. Revelation is understand that the one who died on the cross loved you so much, partly because He made us. And that's a fundamental thing. Now, the book of Revelation, like I say, you're going to get more sermons per weekend in an Adventist church on the book of endings than just about anywhere else. It's a book of endings. But as expert as we are in the book of endings, I like to think that we should be also an expert on the book of beginnings in Genesis. So that's my favorite book. Anyway, now, for anybody here, whoever hears me speak publicly, you know I like to use humor. And I use humor partly because that's me, but secondly, and because incidentally, Christians are the only ones in the world who have anything to laugh about. Our issues are settled, amen? We are lottery winners, amen? Doesn't get any better than what we got going for us. But anyway, that aside, I use humor partly to, when I'm talking to secular groups, I want to try to take some of the tension out of the air. Because on the subject of where we came from, there is real defense mechanisms up, and you can feel it. So whatever I can do to take a little bit of tension out of the air, I do. However, when I come to this verse in the Bible, I feel like I should take my shoes off. The ground is holy. I want you to read these words with me. Let's say them out loud. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. There is no more amazing, no more profound statement ever written or spoken by man than this. What more do you need to know? In the beginning, when there was a beginning, God was already present. He was there before the beginning. And everything that was made, in Hebrew there is no word for universe. So heaven and earth is everything. So in the beginning, when things were made, God was there making them. And by association, by understanding, that's us too. So we are called to come to God in our most fundamental relationship, creature to creator. All right, so if God is the creator, what did he create? And trust me, across the denominations in the world today, there's a vast difference in understanding of what God did to get us here. Did God simply create matter and then let it evolve? Did God create some kind of organic molecule, complex organic molecule? Did he make life itself? You like the stretching out there? Okay. Did God create something a little closer to us? Did God create us as Scripture records? Or did he have virtually nothing to do with us? And trust me, there are people that believe that. The Roman Catholic Church today does believe in evolution. The Presbyterian Church, the Church of the Episcopal Church, the Church of England, some Methodist churches, a couple of Lutheran churches. I asked a Mormon once, what does your denomination teach about origins? And he says, I don't think we have an official position. A lot of churches just don't want to get on record on this. We are one of the last places, folks, that believe in the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. This is the place. And in the last days, I believe God is going to be bringing people to us that believe that too. And find us a place where they can find unity. Anyway, so if you go to a museum today, you are going to a cathedral of atheism. This is what they believe our family tree looks like. We are just a little less hairy than our cousins. Now, I want to ask you something, and as funny as this sounds, I want you to get serious for just a moment. Our science agencies in the world today, I call it pop science. It's science, it's National Geographic, it's PBS. It's all of these different agencies on television, Nature, NOVA, all these things. Science Magazine. All of them pound our young people into thinking that they are accidents, that they are here with no purpose, no future, that if anything, they're related to monkeys. Why is the suicide rate just going up among young people today in our nation? Because if you're pounded with the message of all you are is a hairless ape, with no purpose, no future, doesn't that affect your self-image? Doesn't affect all the big questions in life? So to me, we've got a message that's good news, and it's more than just Jesus dying on the cross. It's more than that. It's God created you with a future and a purpose in the image of God. Okay, in America, what are the polls telling us about what people think about where we came from? Here's the last two polls, 2014 and 17. The three basic questions are, do you believe in a recent creation like the Bible says? On the far right, do you believe in natural evolution with no God, that nature is able to create and organize itself? But the middle one is called theistic evolution. What's theistic evolution? Darwin was right, but God's doing it. God's creating life forms, new species, you and me, and so forth, via death and millions of years of evolving. Okay, that's the method God chose in getting us here. Now, incidentally, who would think that? It would tend to be people who have a high view of science, have a high view of religion, try to jam the two together, and probably don't think too much of how one affects the other. In fact, I've talked to people like this, and they say, well, I just don't think about it. I put religion over in this part of my brain and science over in this part of the brain. So, okay, let's think about it anyway. So, recent creation in 2014 held 42% of Americans. This is way higher than any other Western country. Europe, Canada, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, nobody has numbers anywhere near like this. We're it. Theistic evolution came in at 31%, with natural evolution 19%. Incidentally, that's up over years and years, the last one, because young people today, a lot of them think it's cool to be atheist. Because don't they look around the world today and see religion as part of the problem that the world is dealing with? So they get rid of religion altogether. Anyway, take a look at it now in 2017. Same questions were asked, and notice now recent creation is under 40% for the first time that I've ever heard this. Theistic evolution is up, and then natural evolution stayed right there. Incidentally, it doesn't add up to 100 because some people don't have opinions. Okay? But look at this. So 76% of Americans, in the most recent poll, believe God is here somewhere or another. That drives scientists nuts. That is a huge problem in their thinking and education. They're trying to teach us we don't need God, we don't need that backward, ancient view. We need to come out of that darkness and into the light and understand, that science has explained everything very well. Anyway, so that's kind of interesting. What's also interesting is how few people now are familiar with creationism at all. There's a trend downward to where people don't even know what creationists believe. Okay, that's my job. Here's one this is my only science quote of my talk, but here it is. Dennis Noble is a physiologist at the University of Oxford in England. He's the head of a physiological society in England. He's a scientist, he's an evolutionist. Notice what he wrote to his colleagues on the subject of the most commonly accepted way evolution supposedly works. Does anybody know what that's called? Neo-Darwinism. That's called mutations. That we are all accidents. We're mutants. There's TV programs about mutants. That's what we all are. We're walking mutants. It's the most popular view. That is mistakes between parents to child. In recording DNA, there's a mistake. The child is different than what the parent is. That's evolution. Notice what he says about that most commonly held theory. All the central assumptions of that theory, modern synthesis, also called neo-Darwinism, have been, what's the word? Disproved. Hello? I don't remember reading that in National Geographic or hearing that in PBS programs. He says everything we can test about the most commonly held view of how evolution works not only hasn't been proved, has been disproved in laboratory settings. He's writing this with the plea to his fellow scientists saying, we got to come up with a better way of explaining evolution because the way we've been telling people doesn't work in the laboratory. Okay, there it is. So, now you know. Okay. I believe what Jesus was saying when he spoke to the woman at the well, saying the Father is looking for those who will worship him in what? Two ways. Spirit and in truth, right? Spirit and in truth. I think God is looking for not only those who give him his heart, give him our heart, but also understand who we're worshiping in truth. In other words, an intelligent worshiper is what God is looking for. And let's be intelligent. So back to this, I'm going to unpack this verse in a way you haven't seen before. We're going to start off with saying with a loud voice, fear God and give glory to him. I'm going to get a little bit in trouble on this one, starting off because I'm not going to go PC. What do we typically say fear means in this context? Fear God. What do we usually say about fear God? Really means respect, honor, reverence, okay? But not fear, because perfect love casts out fear. The more you God, the less you fear him. All of that's kind of true, but this is not spoken to the church. This is to every nation, tongue, tribe, and people in the world who do not know God yet and need to know God. I'm going to throw a little curve at you and suggest the word means fear. Bit of a stretch of a translation there. But if I can put it to you this way, and I hinted at this last night, there is nothing more important than you being ready to meet God. There is nothing more important. If you have any kind of a list of things to be concerned about, put that at the top. Duh? And it's simple as that. If you are not ready to meet Jesus when he comes, You need to be concerned about that. Okay, so better yet, give him glory. For the hour of his judgment has come. I want you to remember the concept of judgment for a minute. And worship him who made heaven, earth, and sea. Where do we get those three phrases in that same order in the Bible? There's one place in Psalms, but the other place is Genesis? No? Where? Exodus. Fourth commandment. Oh, come on, you Adventists. That's a phrase that's right out of the seventh commandment. And so we can assume, and we've always assumed, rightly, that this may well be a reference to Sabbath keeping. Come on, world, come back to God as a creator. Oh, did you know? He has a method of improving that or making that work really handy. It's called Sabbath keeping. Keep the Sabbath, and you will remember week by week the most fundamental relationship you have with God. And you can celebrate all the good things that God has created. Okay, so you've got that, and you may have heard that. Here's something that's new. And the springs of waters, what's that a reference to? Almost always I'll hear somebody say waters, revelation, symbolic, peoples. Okay, you're just shifted from literal into symbolic. Okay, let's keep it kind of literal. What would the waters be a reference to?
Flood.
The flood, thank you. Now, how many of you have heard of the Bible version called the Septuagint? You heard of the Septuagint? It's actually a very significant translation of the Bible. There were Jews that were living in Alexandria, Egypt in 200 BC, 200 years before Christ. They wanted their children to read the Bible. Their children could not read Hebrew, but they could read it. So they translated the Old Testament into Greek and called it the Septuagint. And we know Jesus and the disciples were familiar with the Septuagint because many of the versions that we have of quotes from the Old Testament that are in the New Testament are from the Septuagint. In fact, you ever heard of the word Genesis? That's Greek. That's from the Septuagint, naming the first book in the Bible. So there are Greek titles throughout the Old Testament from the Septuagint. It influenced the Bible. Point. Now, where it says springs of waters, that's Greek, of course, but the Septuagint rendered the Genesis version here, on that day all the fountains of the great deep were broken up, with the same fairly rare word in Greek. So fountains and, back to this, springs of water is the same word. Now, why is that important? It means that anybody reading John in his day would immediately see that as a reference to the flood. Got that? That's a reference to the flood. Why is a reference to the flood important in a judgment hour message? Hey, take seriously a God who's coming for judgment. If judgment is happening on the world again, guess what? He did it once before. He did it once before. Take it seriously. He's going to do it again. This time we're not being baptized with water. We're being baptized with fire, a cleansing agent. So this is going to be serious. Take it serious. You see, this has oomph to it. This is a call to worship the God of Genesis and God's two greatest roles as creator and judge. He's going to not let this planet go on forever and not going crazy like it's going now. How many think that's good news? How about the ending of cancer? Do you feel that's good news? Okay. The craziness going on in the world today, the bickering, the division, the fighting, the religious wars. Anybody like to see that end? It's good news. God is judging that and saying we're not going to let it go on forever. The world is not going to tear itself apart on my watch, God says. That's good news. So judgment is good news as well as creatorship. All good news. Okay, so now real quickly, what in the world does the first angel's message of coming back to God as creator, how does that in some way impact the second angel's message, which Babylon is fallen, come out of her, my people. What does Babylon have to do with creation and judgment? Let's go back to the beginning. How did Babylon come about? What's the beginning story of Babylon? Tower of Babel. Tower of Babel. So, why did they build that tower in the first place? And there's more than one reason. Try to reach God, okay. Stairway to heaven, build your own salvation kind of thing. Okay, there's that. What else? Okay, in case the flood came again and God didn't keep his promise. So disbelieving God, saying, I'm not going to do it again, maybe he will. So we're going to build up high enough to be above. Okay, what else? Anything else? Because there's more. Some people wanted to make a great name for themselves. So they build this is like the beginning of another empire. But here's something that's interesting, and Spirit of Prophecy supports this. That one of the reasons why they built the tower was so they could get up and study the heavens and see what caused the flood. In other words, to look for a naturalistic explanation of what just happened. Not a supernatural explanation, but a naturalistic explanation. So in other words, this is another way of saying the supernatural acts don't happen. There must be an explanation if we could just study this out and figure this out. That sounds like it's a little bit more pertinent in the last days of trying to, shall we say, challenge a Genesis record of God as being creator and doing supernatural things. Okay, now who is this guy? This is the guy. I used to pastor the Moscow Polk District, Upper Columbia. That's two university towns 8 miles apart. Washington State University, University of Idaho. Every year they had a celebration called Darwin on the Palouse. And in that they would have guest speakers come and absolutely rip creation speakers to shreds. A whole concept of creation of it. Just, thank you, Darwin, for leading us out into the light. You know, what a great man. Okay, a couple things you need to know about Darwin. Number one, he was a racist. He was against slavery, but in his second book, Descent of Man, he said this: there are many races in the world today. There's this race, but the very highest of all races, the most developed, the most evolved, is the Caucasian race, currently in Europe and America. Okay, said that about races. Said this about genders, that men were more evolved than women. Because according to Darwin, men could do everything better than women. They were stronger, that, all these things they could do better than women. Do I hear an amen out there? I hear laughter, I hear crickets. I did this talk a couple months ago in the Fairbanks church and said that, do I hear an amen? And one man goes, amen! And I said, sir, I see you're seated alone on the pews. The point is this: you've heard how we tear down statues of people that used to be like Confederate war generals or had slaves or something. There's a trend now on campuses. I'm waiting for them to tear down Darwin statues because of those two things. I think if he were invited to a college campus today, I think there'd be pickets outside, protests. But anyway, Darwin's the guy. Now Darwin is important for a couple of reasons. Well, a lot of reasons. If you go to England today, you've got a 10-pound note. On one side is the Queen, the other side is Charles Darwin. You're very proud. Okay, HMS Beagle. What did Darwin do? He had a 4-year degree in religion. But watch out for somebody who's trained to be he was trained to be a minister, a country pastor. So watch out for guys like that talk about origins, right? Anyway, Charles Darwin was trained to be a minister, which was sort of a general degree when you didn't know what you wanted to be. I see the pastor enjoying that one. He signed on to be a naturalist on the map-making boat or tour of the HMS Beagle in 1831. Right out of college, signed up to go on this map-making tour. They went all around the British Empire because the British were running the planet in the middle 1800s. The sun never set on the British Empire. Their empire was everywhere. So they were mapping things. While he was there, he wrote some things down that eventually would become Origin of Species that he published in 1859. Incidentally, he wrote the manuscript. Does anybody know what year? 1844. Very good, Pastor Mark. See, he is a historian. Okay, so what did he do? What did Darwin do that was so unique and special? Because there was evolutionists all over the place before he came. For instance, when he was on this map-making tour and they came to the Galapagos Islands off the coast of Ecuador, they went to the local Safeway market to buy food. And in the meat section at Safeway, they wanted to buy some meat for the crew, and they offered them tortoises. Oh boy, yum. Anyway, tortoises, now they had several, and the natives were saying things like this: oh yeah, this one's from that island, this one's from that island. Well, how can you tell? Those shapes of the shells are a little different. Well, that's interesting. How can they have different shaped shells? They must have had a common ancestor back then, which incidentally we agreed, a common ancestor, but it would have been a tortoise. He also gathered some birds together. Took them back to England. He's not a bird expert. He asked his bird expert friends, what are these? They said, they're all finches. He looked at the bills and said, wait a minute, look at the different beaks and everything. The big ones for hard shells and the little ones for other things. No, they're all finches. Again, he thought about, well, surely they must originally come from a single pair, which we would agree on, although maybe at the time we didn't. But they were finches. Incidentally, now when there's changes in drought or rainfall measurements, the beak sizes change back. So there's no net evolution. You understand what I mean by that? They all remain birds. Anyway, he saw all that. And understand this. He grew up in England. In England, they could raise rabbits, pigeons, horses, dogs, cows. They select parents to make the children have some different variations or traits. They bred them. Now that was unnatural selection. That was human selection. Does nature have a way of selecting parents? And so this is what he contributed to the world of science. He said, I think nature selects the best animals, the strongest, the most able to catch food and eat food and make more babies. The fittest survive. Survival of the fittest. That's what Darwin presented to the science world, and at the time they were ready for something like that, and it caught on. Survival of the fittest. But notice what he's got going on even with just an idea of animals. He said this is the full title of the book, On the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection or the Preservation of Favored Races in the Struggle for Life. He just stumbled upon the scientific explanation of why the Brits were running the planet. They were the most fit. They could do it best. That's why nature had selected them to do that, you see? So there was no moral issues at all. It's just that's how it is. You see what I mean? There's already social implications of Darwinian thinking here. Okay, very good. Let's keep going. So, this is the tree of life. There's great-grandpa down here. This is what everything came from. It's very difficult to explain biologically, but this is by faith how they believe. So, single cell somehow developed into, very early on, plants over here. Incidentally, evolutionists have told us quietly on the side, if you guys stuck to plant evolution, it's very hard for us to defend against that. There's very little evidence of plant evolution. Okay, so plants, and then there's animals without backbones and animals with backbones. Here we are next to monkeys and lemurs, as I said last night, because we look like them. I'm not speaking of anyone personally here. We as a corporate we. So, anyway, we look like them, therefore we must have a common ancestor. Okay, that's the idea. Facts about Charles Darwin. This is really interesting to me. His grandfather was an evolutionist, wrote books, but died before Darwin was born. So Darwin read his grandpa's books. His father was a large MD, physician, demanding, come on Charles, make something of yourself. Charles looked like he was a little bit of a lazy kind of upper middle class guy. His mother was Susanna Wedgwood. You remember Wedgwood, China? She was from that family. But she died when Charles was 8 years old. And that was a tough loss for him. Born in 1809. Here's a trivia question. Pastor Mark, you be quiet on this one if you know the answer. Be my boss. Used to be, notice that? Okay, 1809, Charles Darwin was born on the exact same day as another famous person who helped us in our thinking about the races. 1809, think of who that might be. Same day, not just year, same day. 1809. Look at all these people here. Thinking, I hear the wheels turning. Abraham Lincoln was born on the exact same day as Charles Darwin. Isn't that an interesting coincidence? Anyway, kind of interesting. Trained to be a Church of England minister, had a 4-year degree. He ended up getting an honorary master's from Cambridge, so he only had 4 years of college. Signed up for map making, 1844, 1859, wrote Origin of Species. Incidentally, why a 15-year delay? Partly because his wife was a Christian, and he was worried what she would think. Because you see down here that his wife Emma remained a steadfast Christian their entire married life. She would pray for her husband and he didn't mind. Okay? Anyway, so he started off as Church of England Christian, became a deist. What's a deist? I can't. Was God the creator? Maybe. Has he been doing anything with us since? He might have started things, but he's left off and done other important things God's do or something. Hasn't been involved, can't talk to him, not involved to answer prayers. So just started everything and went off and left us. So that's deism. I call that atheism light. Because really, practically speaking, atheism. Okay, but then became an agnostic. What's agnostic? It's a term that one of his disciples came up with. Agnostic. Let's see if you can get the correct way they translate agnostic. Anybody? They believe that to know whether God exists or not is not knowable. You can't prove it yes or no. So it's a not knowable thing, even though the word in Greek is quite clearly ignorant. It means ignorant. But anyway, you don't say that. Don't know. Okay, he had a Christian wife. This is important coming up here now. He had a lifelong panic disorder. Anybody here know what an anxiety attack is? I do. I've had them. As a kid, I had anxiety attacks. Now, he had anxiety attacks. Some of them would be so severe they'd put him out of action for a year. For a year before you could recover and do more public work. He dealt with anxiety. And I just feel for him, frankly. I feel for him. I wish I were his pastor. Or, you know what I mean? I'd like to have talked with him. But he had dialogues with pastors. This is another non-PC thing that I'm going to suggest is, do you think there's some truth in the following statement? For those of you who had kids, that some kids connect with some parents better than with the other parent? Sometimes a daughter might connect with a dad and a mother with the son, and there's something a little special. You don't want to play favorites, I know, but there's sometimes a special connection. Charles had a special connection with a daughter named Annie, and she died at a young age, something like 10, with like a tuberculosis, a very miserable death. And he had a problem with God after that. People have problems sometimes with God if they haven't worked through a loss like that. Isn't that true? If you aren't grounded, if you don't have a relationship already, something like that can drive you away from God. And it did for Darwin. And I just feel for him that he didn't have, frankly, a better ministerial training. Buried in Westminster Abbey, a Church of England. In 1882, that wasn't his idea. He had friends that negotiated to get him in there. 1882. I have to tell you this. One time on eBay. Anybody here ever do eBay? I do eBay. I saw for sale or for auction once an admittance, what would you call it? A ticket to admit somebody, the bearer of this ticket, to Charles Darwin's funeral at Westminster Abbey. I said, I would love to have that. Started bidding on it. It went up to $1,500, $1,600, $1,700. I had to drop out, But anyway, it was a big deal, Darwin's funeral. But look at what the Church of England says today about Charles Darwin. On the 200th anniversary in 2009, they posted this. This is the PR director on their website. Charles Darwin, 200 years from your birth, the Church of England owes you what? An apology for misunderstanding you and by getting our first reaction wrong, encouraging others to misunderstand you still. What were we thinking, Charles Darwin, when we had a problem with you saying God did not create man? Church of England, where have you gone? William Tyndale, John Wycliffe, people willing to die to preserve the English Bible for us. And now they're celebrating the man that basically said all those fairy tales and they don't believe them. You know, how can God send the sun backwards? Come on. How can he raise somebody from the dead? Oh, please, a fish swallowing Jonah, excuse me. That happened to be a good one. Come on. All of those are fairy tales written by, as Richard Dawkins says, Middle East camel herders who wrote the Bible. There's nothing there. Come on. We're educated, we're science-oriented people. We can move out of those ancient thoughts. Charles Darwin, we're sorry we made life difficult for you. Church of England, where have you gone? Because at issue is the image of God. And I want you to think about this. All doctrines, whether they're true or false, impact us most on image of God. What they tell you about what they think about God. Everything circles around that. That's the primary thing. So, take a look at this verse. It's an American Standard Version because it's the best translation of this verse out of the Greek. Jesus is speaking to his disciples and he says, are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? He's saying, you guys think a penny will buy 2 sparrows. Sparrows worth half a cent. Now what God thinks, and not one of them shall fall on the ground without your Father. Most translations add a word, without your Father's will. Will is supplied. It is not in the original. I want you to catch what Jesus says here. It's amazing. Not one sparrow falls alone. Out of the millions of sparrows in the world, everyone that falls with God the Father being present and by association with his or assumption, feels the loss, values that sparrow more than half a penny. Now, if you believe in theistic evolution, and this is what you're accusing God of, you're accusing God of not caring a rip about sparrows, let alone every other species he's ever made, because the way he makes species is by millions of generations of fighting and dying and clawing and suffering to get to the place we are today. That's the method God uses to create. That he doesn't apparently care about all those that have come before because they fell. Apparently not with God, because that was part of God's plan. You're making death part of God's plan. It's not an intruder. Whenever I've conducted a funeral, I have to tell people very honestly, unless it's somebody that's 100 years old or something, which is not very often. If it's something else and I see the tears shed, I get angry. I get angry at the devil who's brought sin and suffering into the world. We're not supposed to say goodbye to anybody. This is foreign. This is not God's plan. Amen? It steams me. I just hate to see this kind of pain brought into people's lives. Jesus is saying, disciples, you don't think anything of sparrows. That's not the way God does it. God values sparrows. And then he says this, you're worth more than many sparrows. You know what he doesn't say? You're worth more than all the sparrows. That's not lowering your value. That just bumps sparrows up a bit. God values his animals. So, if God is going to create a new heaven and new earth, is he going to take millions of years to do that? Okay. So, scoffers will come in the last days. Here is a verse that I mentioned last night, is written for Seventh-day Adventists. Huh? Yeah. Scoffers will come, and they are scoffing against people who dare talk about the second coming. Notice this, the message that they're laughing at is the idea Jesus is coming back. Where is the promise of his coming? Where is he? You guys have been talking about this forever. Where is he? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of creation. Everything continues on and on and on. God has never stepped into human history in the way you're talking about. Oh, wait a minute. Yes, he has. But this they willfully are ignorant of. That by the word of God the heavens were of old and the waters basically flooded the world. They are ignorant. They ignore evidence of the creation and the flood. Oh, we're back to Revelation 14, 6 and 7. Worship him who made, worship him who judges. It's a last day message, and we can expect scoffing going on. Do we get that today? This is right now. This is going on right now. Okay. Trivia time. Now I'm going to test your knowledge, Pastor Mark. I'm less worried about you, Joe. We have a relationship, you understand. Okay, here we go. 3 times in Jesus' ministry, 3 times, an audible voice comes from heaven. 3 times, what were they? Baptism, Mount this death, Mount of Transfiguration, and I heard somebody else. Greeks. Okay, who said that? Greeks. Very good, sir. I've been in churches this large. There's been deadly silence on the third one. This is in John 12. Don't look it up now. John 12. Let me set the stage. Jesus is in the temple with his disciples, and they're in the Jewish section behind, and then there's this barricade where you cannot pass if you're a Gentile. In fact, they have found the sign, the original sign that's in a museum in Jerusalem. And all Gentiles cannot pass this sign on pain of death. Okay, so they could not go past this barricade. Greeks come. They're looking to see Jesus. And so they come into the temple court, they come up to the barricade, they see Jesus and the disciples over there, and they try to get their attention. And apparently Philip is closer. So Philip sees them and comes over. They come, and Philip comes up, may I help you? Clearly Greeks. May I help you? Sir, here's the great question, right? The best thing you could ever ask. Sir, we'd like to see Jesus. Anybody here want to see Jesus? Oh man. So, sir, we'd like to see Jesus. And Philip, does he say, okay, yeah then, I'll go get him. It says he goes to Andrew. So I can see him saying to the Greek, let me get back to you about that. Goes over to Andrew and says, Andrew, there's some Greeks here that want to see you. What should we do? I mean, will Jesus get in trouble talking to Greeks in such a public place? And I can just see Andrew coming back saying, what has Jesus done when we tried to keep people from him? He doesn't like it. Good point. So they go to Jesus, and they say to Jesus, Jesus, there are some Greeks here that want to see you. And if I can paraphrase Jesus' response, it is like he lights up like a light bulb and says, this is why I came. This is what it's all about, the gospel, not just to the Jews, but to the world. Oh, Father, glorify me with the glory we had before. And a voice comes from heaven, and that voice says, whoops, I have both glorified it and will glorify it again. Now, I said all of that to get you to the next part. Therefore the people stood by and heard it, said it had thundered. Others said, an angel has spoken to him. Now you give me a description. How are you going to categorize those two responses? What do they fall under? Thunder, angel. Thunder, angel. What's thunder? That's nature. That's a natural explanation. What's an angel? That's a supernatural explanation. Natural, supernatural. Some were saying that was thunder. Did you hear that? That was thunder. That was thunder, wasn't it? And then there were others that were saying, that was a voice. Did you hear it? It's a voice. The difference. Why the difference with the same data, with the same experience? Because, may I suggest to you, they had different ways of interpreting things. One was not that open to a supernatural explanation. There must be a natural explanation. So that's why you can go to the Grand Canyon today. This is the Grand Canyon here. Look at these old stones. Layers of them, right? And that's why you can go to the Grand Canyon today, and if you're a creationist, you'll say, look at these layers, the flood. And if you're an evolutionist, you can go to these layers and say, look at these layers, millions of years. Same data, different mindset. Thank you, class. Different mindset, different way of interpreting the same data. So are you open to the concept of supernatural, yes or no? If you completely rule it out from the get-go, then you've got to go with thunder. Interesting. Okay, so Jesus said it is a voice. And he basically said, how lucky for you guys. I didn't need the voice. God just gave you more evidence of who I am. Well, I think just like Crosby, Stills, and Nash sang, we got to get back to the garden. And we're back to the garden because how many of you remember when your teacher said the following thing and you felt like going into a hallelujah chorus when they said it? The teacher said, I looked at the results of the tests. You know what? I'm going to let you all take the test again. That's all right. Guess what? We get to go back to the garden and take the same test again where we separated from our Creator God. When God said the fruit was what? Toxic. But Eve, thanks to the devil there, encouraging her, said, well, let me look at this and think about this. Let me bring up some equipment and we'll just test this fruit for toxicity. And I'm looking at the evidence. I see this serpent could not speak before. The serpent ate the fruit and it's clearly not dead. It's able to speak. What will it do for me? It looks good. All these different things going in her mind. God said this, but her superior intellect told her something different. Who was right? God was right. In the same way, may I suggest to you that it may come down to something as simple as God said so. Is that good enough? Is that good enough for you? I think he's got a good track record. We get to take the same test, and hopefully we'll do better. So, here is Westminster Abbey. There is the interior, and there is Charles Robert Darwin buried in the floor, next to some of the great scientists like Isaac Newton, who believed in God. So, what else do you notice about that church? Pretty empty. Okay, I know it's a setup picture. Church of England is empty today. They just announced that they're about ready to sell over 1,000 of their church buildings because of lack of attendance. We might be able to pick up some good deals. Why is the Church of England comparatively dead today? Spiritually, England is comparatively dead today. Less than 10% of the people go to any church on a given weekend. They're post-Christian. Why? May I suggest to you that when you start to teach that there is no God that's a miracle worker, there is no God that can overrule nature, there is no God who can stand in a boat and tell the winds to cease, and they cease. Why would you even present a prayer request to a God who can't go beyond the laws of nature? Where's the power? Where's the hope? Where's the help? You've just taken out the strength of God. You've made him impotent instead of the omnipotent God that he really is. I think you've got the power of the church. And the church is seeing the evidence of this. May I suggest to you something very obvious, and it's just right in front of my eyes, and hopefully yours. If you want a church that looks like the interior there, all beautiful and empty, bring Darwin to church. Amen? I think it's pretty obvious. Can we have questions unanswered? Yeah, I think so. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. I love Job, chapter 38 to the end, where God is speaking to Job, because it's the longest section of the Bible where God is speaking non-stop. Right there, that should be enough to get you to read it this afternoon. But God basically says this after Job and his friends are trying to figure God out and what he does. God finally breaks in and says, "Oh, I can't take it anymore. Oh, who is this that's darkening counsel without knowledge? Oh my goodness. Let me set you straight on a few things." And he starts to talk about his creation and nature and all the things that he has made. And take a look at this, take a look at this. You think I don't have this under control? And he mostly talks about setting boundaries. I tell the waves, don't come any further. You can keep crashing, but don't go any further than this. So God is still in control, even though he allows things to happen to a certain place. He's not allowed the world to blow itself up with nuclear bombs, but he allowed us to create them. That's what God does. Puts borders. Notice what Job said. "Surely I spoke of things I did not understand, and I'll be quiet now." It's okay to have questions. When my angel sees me coming in the future life, he's going to probably go, "Here it comes." Oh, no, wait, no, I just have a few questions that I have been writing down. We're going to have questions. It's okay. God, you know what? There's a difference between asking questions and having doubt. You understand the difference? Doubt is one thing. Inquisitiveness is another. There's a difference, and God sees the difference. Okay, so back to this verse. Saying with a loud voice, as the bachelor says, a megaphone, loud voice. I want to thank the North Pacific Union Conference for allowing us to actually turn up the volume a little bit on this. I would love it that this church would become the fighters for creationism in the world today. I'd love us to come out of our closet instead of saying, yeah, we're creationists. But we're creationists. We believe God's Word from Genesis to Revelation. Our image of God is He's big, He's powerful, He's able to communicate to us what happened, He's capable, He can preserve a record of what happened. He knows we'd like to know. That's my image of God. He's big. Amen? Okay. So, sing with a loud voice. Because, guess what, guys? He's got this. If you're looking at the news and you wonder sometimes, don't worry. Read Job. God's got this. God's got this. And that's the good news for the world. And He will not let this go on forever. He's got plans for making this fixed. Are you ready? Hope so. Thank you.
I invite you to stand again with us. Let's sing of the mighty power of God, shall we?
Heads with me as we pray. Heavenly Father, great Creator, omnipotent God, we are so honored to be called your children. We are so honored to know the truth that we were formed in your image, that you have a plan for us, a hope, a future, that Jesus has gone to prepare a place for us, a place individual for just us, that our names are known and written in the book of life. Heavenly Father, what a great, great hope you've given us. The issues of this world seem very small compared to this great truth. Father, may we be a people that share with a loud voice this truth to those that still know of only this other theory of why they are here. May they see the great truth, the great light, be drawn to is our prayer in Jesus' name.
God bless you all. We'll see you at lunch, right? Up there.